Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today students we will discuss about anti-diabetic drugs and this is my part 1 of these anti-diabetic drugs. First of all I will tell you what is diabetes mellitus. Diabetes mellitus basically is a chronic systemic disease in which there are two types of abnormalities. First one is metabolic abnormality and second one is vascular abnormality. As regards the metabolic abnormality, there are disorder of carbohydrate metabolism as well as protein metabolism. These result from inadequate production or underutilization of insulin. Basically, problem is where because of inadequate production or underutilization of insulin. What happens when a patient experiences diabetes mellitus? So typically patient experience glucosuria and hyperglycemia. It means that there is high blood glucose level in your blood as well as in your urine. Diabetes mellitus is basically of two types, type 1 diabetes mellitus and type 2. In type 1 diabetes mellitus, patients do not secrete insulin. And in this case, the reason is autoimmune. I'm repeating, in type 1 diabetes mellitus, there is no insulin in the body of the patient. But in type 2 diabetes, patient secretes insufficient amounts of insulin. That is not fulfilling the requirement. The second reason may be the insulin receptors are resistant to existing circulating insulin. In type 2 diabetes mellitus, there are two reasons. Number one, insufficient insulin, and number two, the insulin that is being secreted, the receptors are resistant. Receptors are not responding to the existing circulating insulin. According to these two types, we will treat the patients accordingly. Whether the patient is of type 1 diabetes mellitus, there will be different treatment, and in type 2, there will be different treatment. That we will discuss as we progress. What will be the symptoms of patient that we label as that the patient is diabetes mellitus? Symptoms are hyperglycemia, glucosuria, polyuria, polydipsia, polyphagia, and possibly itching. Polyuria, that is frequent urination. Polydipsia, increased thirst. Polyphagia, he or she wants to eat more and more, and there may be itching. But the most important is the laboratory finding. The body finding is that the blood glucose level is higher than 126 mg per deciliter. Then we can label a patient as diabetes mellitus. Patient may experience weight loss, weakness, and increased frequency of infections. Polys mean polyuria, polydipsia, and polyphagia. There are three polys in the patients that are labeled as diabetics. Increased frequency of infection is basically due to increased blood glucose level that enhance that favored infection. Without intervention, that means without medication, the patient with diabetes mellitus can experience significant complications, and these may be retinopathies, glaucoma, neuropathies, and cardiovascular disease, as well as there may be increased incidence of toxemia of pregnancy. As you know, insulin is secreted from beta cells of Langerhans, and the beta cells of Langerhans constitute about 75% mass of these islets. Insulin binds with and activates 80% of the cells. Liver, muscle, and fat cells are the primary tissues on which insulin acts. With insulin receptor binding, the cell membranes become permeable to glucose. That is, the glucose enters into the cell. It means that insulin is required to enter the glucose within the cells, then the glucose performs various functions. And if the insulin is not present As in type 1 diabetes mellitus, there will be more glucose in the blood. Cells will be deprived of glucose. The glucose will not be available to perform their functions. And if insulin is insufficient, as in type 2 diabetes mellitus, so glucose will not enter the cells. It will remain in the blood. That is harmful. That is detected in your laboratory. That is, the glucose level will be more than 126 milligram per deciliter. Increased cell permeability to glucose also allows amino acids, fatty acids, and electrolytes to enter the cells. So it means when insulin is present, not only the glucose will enter the cells, but also amino acids, fatty acids, and electrolytes. If there is no insulin, these amino acids will be present in the blood. These fatty acids will be present in the blood, and these electrolytes will also be present in the blood. That is not needed there. They are needed inside the cell to perform body functions. So the changes in this causes anabolism and inhibit catabolism. Normally, insulin increases the glucose transport into the liver, skeletal muscle, adipose tissue, heart, and even uterus. That is, glucose is needed in these organs. It must be present for muscle and fat tissues to use glucose for energy, as I have already told you. This glucose is required for the body functions, for the cell function. So insulin regulates glucose metabolism to produce energy for cellular functions. So this insulin is very important for your multiple of your body functions are being produced by this insulin. That is why when insulin is not present, as in type 1 diabetes mellitus, or if insulin is insufficient, these patients experience many metabolic abnormalities as well as vascular abnormalities because of non-presence of this insulin or insufficient presence of this insulin. This is a very important point. Insulin promotes glucose into fat cell where it is broken down. One of the breakdown product is alpha glycerophosphate. This alpha glycerophosphate combines with fatty acids which ultimately forms triglycerides. And this is the mechanism by which insulin promotes fat storage. If insulin is not present, this triglyceride will be present in your blood. That will enhance the process of atherosclerosis, as you have learned when you have learned angina pectoris. So why these patients are more prone to ischemic heart disease? Because of this reason, because of these circulating triglycerides. These patients are more prone to atherosclerosis and ischemic heart. So there will be more concentration of triglycerides, cholesterol, and phospholipids in the blood. That is harmful. That will lead to ischemic. Now is the protein metabolism. Insulin increases the total amount of body protein by increasing the transport of amino acids into the cells. I have already discussed when insulin binds to its receptor, it allows the entry of glucose into the cells as well as amino acids are also entered into the cells. So these amino acids are needed for synthesizing of proteins within the cell. So for protein metabolism, for normal protein metabolism, insulin is needed. If insulin is not present, so these proteins will not be synthesized and the patients will be deficient of these proteins, that is patients of diabetes mellitus. Insulin also potentiates the effects of growth hormone, a growth hormone that is needed for your growth. It means that if insulin is not present and if the patient is child, he or she is in growing phase, so the growth hormone cannot perform its function efficiently because of lack of insulin. So diabetes mellitus in children causes growth retardation because of this fact, because insulin potentiates the effects of growth hormone. Insulin is needed for protein metabolism. Insulin needed for glucose metabolism. So lack of insulin causes protein breakdown into the amino acids, and these amino acids will be present in the blood, where these amino acids are not needed in the blood. They are needed inside the cells to perform the cell. Now I will tell you how the endogenous insulin, which is normally present in your body, is secreted. So the glucose is the major stimulus for the insulin secretion. The important point is that oral glucose is more effective than the intravenous glucose. You may be asked question why. The basic reason is that oral glucose increases the release of certain hormones that are gastrin, secretin, and cholecystokinin, as well as gastric inhibitory peptide. All of these hormones are released in your intestinal tract when you take oral glucose. And all of these hormones, that is gastrin, secretin, cholecystokinin, and gastric inhibitory peptide, they potentiate the increase of release of insulin from the beta cells of Langerhans. So the oral glucose is more effective for release of insulin from the beta cells of Langerhans than the intravenous glucose, because intravenous glucose does not cause the release of these gastrin, secretin, cholecystokinin, and gastric inhibitory peptide. Endogenous insulin also stimulates. So there are certain hormones in our body that raise the blood glucose level. These are cortisol, glucagon, growth hormone, epinephrine, estrogen, and progesterone. All of these hormones raise blood glucose level in our body. So if there is increase, pathological increase of these hormones, there are chances of developing diabetes mellitus. So there are certain factors that inhibit insulin secretion. It includes hypoxia, hypothermia, and stimulation of alpha adrenergic 2 receptors. I will show you the picture where you can see why stimulation of alpha adrenergic 2 receptors causes increase, inhibit the insulin secretion. Stimulation of alpha adrenergic 2 receptors inhibit the insulin secretion. In next coming slides, I will show you the picture. Now it is the types of diabetes mellitus. So I have told you there are two types of diabetes mellitus, type 1 and the type 2. I have told you that type 1 is an autoimmune disorder in which there is destruction of pancreatic beta cells, and it is usually of sudden onset, and it is associated with high incidence of complication, and it always requires exogenous insulin. 10% of the patients of diabetes are usually of type 1 and the 90% of type 2. 10% are type 1 and 90% are type 2. Here is a complication of diabetic ketoacidosis. It is a complication that usually develops in patients with type 1 diabetes mellitus. It is life-threatening complication that occurs with insulin deficiency. What happens? In this, glucose cannot be used by the body cells because insulin is not present. And if this glucose is required for the production of energy, so if glucose is not present for production of energy, body switch on to fat, and fat is mobilized for this purpose. Mobilized fat is then extracted by the liver and broken down into glycerol and fatty acids. Normally, this happens in your fast in Ramzan. If when our glucose is not present in our body and it is our body cells are continuously performing function and they need glucose all the time, they need glucose for performing of their functions. If glucose is not present, then fat is mobilized. This mobilized fat is then extracted by the liver, and the liver broken down it into glycerol and fatty acids, and these fatty acids further broken down into ketones. And in diabetic ketoacidosis, because there is extreme deficiency of insulin, so there will be more production of ketones, and these ketones will appear in blood. That is why we call it as diabetic ketoacidosis. This is the diagrammatic picture. You can see there is insufficient or absent insulin. So as a result, the fat cells will come into action. These fat cells will be extracted by the liver, where they are converted into ketones. As a result, there will be increased glycogenolysis, gluconeogenesis, and ketogenesis, and there will be increased ketone and glucose production that will be present in your blood. And the accumulation of these ketones result in acidemia. That is why we called it as diabetic ketoacidosis. But the body attempt to buffer this acidic hydrogens by ionic exchange. What body does? Intracellular potassium exits cells. Hydrogen ions enter the cell. Result is excretion of potassium in the urine. What kidney do? Kidney attempt to buffer by excreting ketones. And what the lungs do? Lungs attempt to buffer by osmolar breathing. So in patients with diabetic ketoacidosis, you can diagnose patients when he or she enters in the emergency by the type of breathing, that is Kussmaul breathing. It is a typical breathing when you are going to wards. You will observe such type of patients. So these patients have Kussmaul breathing. Moreover, there is ketonic smell in their respiration, a typical smell of ketones in their respiration. Kussmaul breathing, there will be nausea and vomiting. There will be polydipsia, thirst, polydipsia, polyphagia, polyuria. Patient experience hypotension, tachycardia, and shock.